Hello there! With Voron mostly assembled, physically, it's time to get into the electronics. First thing first, the main power supply. Check that it's set to your correct voltage. In my case it's 230 volts. Take the Voron and carefully turn it around, because at this point you're having the extruder set up, and well, I think I'll do a trick. Spare part box here. So here is the power supply. First of all, let's degrease the block itself, the power block, and the bottom part of the printer. Let's put a couple stripes of the VHB tape on the power supply, turning this around and pressing here. 5-volt power converter, which should be located here near the motor, and which should be held by two 6mm screws. Next, mounting brackets for the SKR Mini and Raspberry Pi. These are these two, and of course the SKR Mini and Raspberry Pi themselves. Which Pi did I get? Oh, 3B+. So which one is which? There is one asymmetric. This is for the Raspberry Pi, and one asymmetric for the SKR Mini. I'll start with the Raspberry Pi. This part should be facing the port side. Yeah, this part with this protrusion, so should face the side with the ports. And I should install it with the self-tapping screws. SKR Mini should be attached to the frame using to the bracket using 6mm entry screws. So we have that one hole here, and this one protrusion should be aligned with this hole. It seems like the both of the brackets should be just VHB'd and taped to the printer itself, and then glue them to the back of the printer. The Raspberry Pi should be placed here on the bottom part of the back plate. Should be placed like this on the right side of the printer, with the USB and the SD card slot to the bottom. Main switch, and as I'm using a Formbot kit, all the wires are pre-crimped, and yeah, I have most of the wires, and I have two jumpers assembled as per instruction. By the way, always check if you really have a fuse here, because some cheapo Chinese plugs come without it, and you have a very interesting and educating time finding out the reason why nothing actually works. We only need to install one threaded insert here. Then install plug in the plug box, minding all the wires. This is a hole that will be used for the threaded insert. We have two nuts here, and they will match these two holes and these two screws. So let's pre-align them. Installation is done with 3 and 3 8mm screws. Not 6, but 8. Here goes the power supply, and let's connect the wires to the power supply. That's simple. Next step, power supply to the step-down module. So I'm using two of the ports, two of the 24-volt ports here to get the power to the step-down module. Next step, power supply to the motherboard, and basically I need these two wires, which can be crimped and which are already crimped to fit into the SKR, but I need to drag them from here to the back of the printer, here to the motherboard, and this is way too short. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do about it. Well, there's nothing I can do. I have to recrimp them. Yeah, I'm using 24 AVG wires here because otherwise I might get some undervoltage errors. Strangely, the manual says that this is a 24 power supply, and this thing is not used, but I have a feeling that this is a power input. Let me double check. No, it's power. Print bed heater wires should be installed to the adjacent slot. And basically this is a problem with all the pre-crimped kits, because you try to assemble them in a pretty way, and then you have one wire is longer, one wire is shorter, and they crimped it for you. They did a good job, but generally it's still getting ugly. Finally, the bed thermistor should be installed in this slot. If you remember, I had to remove the connector itself because I couldn't push it through the drag chain. I'm putting it back now. This is the end stop, and it should be put here. And Y end stop, which is the back end stop, should be put here. Pre-crimped loom already turns into wiring hell. Here I have a bit of internal resistance because on one hand I need to cut all the motor wires and make them pretty and shorten them so they have like very short wires ending here. On the other hand, I'm too lazy doing that. Or am I? Or am I not? That's the question. And as per manual, I see that I should connect to the Raspberry Pi to the board via the USB cable. But the thing is that I don't have a USB cable, and Formbot kit didn't think about the USB cable. Instead of that, I have these two wires, which are marked as step down to Raspberry Pi. So I suppose I'm getting 5 volts, and I'm putting them to GPIO ports of Raspberry Pi, which implies that I'm connecting the SKR to Raspberry Pi via UART. So I will have to add two cables. Yeah. As far as I remember, these two are +5 and the third one is G&D, but I'm not taking chances now, and I will consider this assembled. At this point I have to determine what length should I have here, and I think that the best way is to base it upon the Z, not the Z but the X end stop. This wire, which was pre-crimped by Formbot, so when I put it into the end position, when I put it to the SKR board here, I should be able to push the bed all the way. I don't need to push the bed all the way down because the bed doesn't move here. I'm moving only the head. So if I plug it into the board, I think this is enough. I will still have to do some crimping, and this is crimping these 3 cooling wires. One is marked, this is for the 5-volt fan, and I can join together the remaining 2, because these are 24 volts cooling fans. So I decided to take some break and return to the process the next day, and I think I will just use these ultra expensive microfeed 3 connectors to crimp the fans, and I will crimp both 24 volt fans together. Okay, so I will base everything on the end stop wire lengths. this is X end stop. Yeah, that's X end stop, and it should be plugged to this one, to this hole. So basically, well, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put this end stop and base all my measurements on this end stop exactly. And the hot end thermistor should occupy the last thermistor port, which is on the very bottom of the SKR. By the way, the spool is here. The PFT tube should go through this leg, so I suppose I'll just thread it in and to simplify things a bit and to add a bit of rigidity to this construction. As far as I know, the E-motor should fit the last one, the last slot, so the wire should be pretty long. Regarding fans, the 24-volt fan should be placed here, and the 5-volt fan should be split into plugs, one plug here, one plug here, to get the ground here and 5 volts here. So this is it. Definitely not as hard as wiring the whole 2.4 Voron, but still a lot of effort. I think I'll take a break to install the firmware and test that everything is working and everything is wired correctly, and then I will get back with some with panel and skid installation. So see you later, I presume.